point statements or beliefs expressed on the following program by the host, guests, or callers are not necessarily the opinions of FantasyAccess.com, Media Group Inc., ownership, management, sponsors, or website.
All rise, football fans, as the Welt Rheaume Miami Dolphins report with Marcel Louis-Jacques is in session.
Welt Rheaume has more than 62 years of litigation experience handling insurance disputes. They are committed to resolving even the toughest insurance claims quickly. Call them for a free consultation. 954-966-4646. Here's Miami Dolphins insider Marcel Louis-Jacques.
Is locked and loaded and ready to go to New England. Are you going to New England? Are they sending you to? Okay. All right.
I am. I will be in Boston. Brief change in philosophy. I swore last year that I was a Providence guy now, that I was done with Boston. But I had to change for undisclosed reasons. I had to change for just a year, and we will be right back to Rhode Island in 2024. Believe that.
Okay. All right.
And what's the guy, man? We had a pretty spirited debate about this in the press room yesterday.
When I used to go to it back in the day, every time I'd go, I'd always go to Anthony's to have some seafood. It was right on the water. Although this weekend may not be a good place to be on the water, actually, because you might be closer to the storm if you're on the water. So you're a little closer. But
apparently, I think it's supposed to pass. Definitely in time for Sunday's game. I'm actually not sure about Saturday, but hopefully everything is okay. East Coast has been getting.
I don't think it'll be that bad for you guys. It might be some rain, some wind, but I don't think it'll be that bad because it's
late in the storm. It's pretty far east. I think
and it's not a really strong storm. So yeah, you might get some wind, some rain, something like that. So what's the food spot that you like to go to? Because I haven't gone to Boston in years, bro. So I'm sure the habits have changed for folks.
In Boston, the only place I care about in Boston, it is it's like a biscuit breakfast sandwich shop. I don't know what part of town it's in. It's near the big park downtown, whatever the big park downtown is called. I can maybe pull up a map real quick while I'm on here and see if I can at least figure that part out. But I think the breakfast spot is called Mike's Breakfast House or Mike's something. Okay. I'm going to have to obviously do some research. It's been 2 years since I've been to Boston. So, but I do remember that sandwich was special. So
they got a couple good spots at that place. So yeah, that city's got some good restaurants, overall. All right, so I saw that the coach, the defensive coordinator, lots of people, even Tua yesterday, have addressed the media. So we got some stuff going on. Interesting. The nickel and base package linebackers, and we were all wondering, why did AVG play more? Is he ahead more? So the question I would ask for you is, clearly Vic Fangio had some input in David Long. Are they maybe disappointed that David Long isn't playing every down, just to look at it that way? Look, personally for me, I'm a big AVG fan. So maybe, just maybe, Flo also was kind of a career stopper for him because he didn't play him enough. And maybe Fangio finds something in him, because I really like AVG, actually, to be quite honest. I think he has a lot of potential to be a playmaker for you. So how do you decipher this whole thing? Good thing to have, bad thing because David isn't on the field every down and he's your big free agent on defense, except for Jalen, but at the linebacker spot. So how do you decipher that information you got? Just wondering.
It's kind of, it's kind of interesting, right? Because I feel like AVG for the past 2 years, at least since I've been here, 2 years, pass rusher. That's what you think of him as. He's an edge rusher. He's an outside linebacker guy who, good rotational guy who would provide some pressure in relief of your main dude. This is a different role for him. And I think David Long came in with the expectation to be better in run support and more efficient in run support than Elandon Roberts was last year. And, don't get me wrong, he could sniff out a run. He just didn't always make the play. Up here, excellent. And if he got a hold of somebody, that's a Sports Center. It's got Sports Center top 10 written all over it. The problem with the landing was that athletically, he didn't always get there in time. He would overrun or he would be a step late. He could see it through. He could see plays through. So the hope is that, David Long, a little bit more athletic, would be somewhat as cerebral, equally as cerebral, but athletically more efficient in actually making the play. And so, it was kind of a surprise to see him out on these nickel packages. But as Fangio said, like Van Ginkel has earned the right to be on that field right then. Not to mention, I do wonder how much, Long maybe soured himself on Vic Fangio when he was beat by Keenan Allen there early in the first quarter, because we didn't really see him a whole lot in passing situations after that. But it's hard to blame him for being mixed. It's hard to blame him for getting matched up on Keenan Allen. That was immediately was like, oh God, what happened? How did this happen?
Right. It's a little unfair. That was the only long play they had, and that's because they got it on a linebacker, and they got the perfect matchup on that one. No linebacker that Miami has was going to stay with that guy at that point. That was a mismatch.
Maybe Duke Riley by default, but
I still don't think
it's not one that you want. Let's put it that way. Like they have no linebacker that they want covering Keenan Allen. I think Channing Tindall athletically should be able to keep up with, a receiver like that, in terms of just a straight line speed. But Allen is one of the best route runners in the NFL.
Yeah, dude.
Covering him with linebacker is not a good idea.
Yeah, Pro Bowl receiver I don't want against any of our linebackers. You got to have like a Derek Brooks or something. You got to have like just an absolute stud to be able to stay with that guy. You know what I mean? And that's just something that they don't have. So let's be honest. The Dolphins don't have really a stud linebacker. Now, they do have a stud left tackle. And the stud left tackle to practice on a Monday. Was Wednesday yesterday, right? Wednesday.
Yeah.
But to practice on a Wednesday, that is, huge, dude. So you're talking about a guy that it looks like he's definitely going to play this week, right?
Maybe. I think he ditched the red jersey today, I believe, which is a positive sign. It's hard to tell conditioning from as far away as we were, especially since it's just position drills. So I don't want to definitively say one way or another, like he's going to play or he's not going to play. I'm not comfortable making that decision right now, making that choosing one way or another. I will say it's a positive sign, and it's a lot more positive sign than not practicing. But like you and I spoke about last week, he hasn't practiced since August 17th. He hasn't done any, maybe some conditioning off to the side, but no game action since the playoff.
But if there's a guy that can do it, it's him.
That's what we keep hearing. So that's why it's hard to say one way or another what he's actually going to do or what he's not going to do.
Now, I saw the press conference. Are your trepidations coming from the part where he says, well, I got to work on my hands and my footwork, I can get back into the groove of all of this? Is that the part of him, you hearing that part say, well, maybe he's just kind of trying to fine tune himself to get ready to come back, which, by the way, also makes sense that if you're going to come back even in the next week or two, you got to start practicing at one point. You got to start doing something. You know what I mean?
You do have to start. I would personally play him next week against Denver. Just because, I don't want to go into a matchup against the Patriots and Bill Belichick with anything that could be perceived as a weakness. So, if you go into that week and you say, and Bill sees, the left tackle hasn't played in 8 months. He just started practicing 4 days ago. He's probably not in game shape. Let's be completely honest here. You could be as conditioned as possible outside the field. You run on the treadmill, you can box, you can do this, that, and the third. There's nothing, and players will tell you, there's nothing that replaces game speed and game conditioning. So, I don't know if he's game conditioned yet, but I just wouldn't want to deal with that. I wouldn't want that guy of all people in the NFL besides Vic Fangio. That is not a guy I want to come in with any sort of weakness in there. Meanwhile, and they've got a couple decent pass rushers up in New England. Matthew Judon is one of the better ones in the league. Josh Uche, I think, had 10 last year. He's solid. Denver, though?
No, they're kind of young. Yeah. They're not as the only reason I would tell you that maybe there's a chance he plays, it's because you're now going against one of the more cerebral defensive-minded coaches. So, do you want your best out there, period, which Taron Armstead is your best? Do you want him out there? Or do you start getting him in shape now? Because Kendall Lamb has done, God, dude, we've tried to explain to everybody he's been fantastic throughout preseason and training camp. And we were all wondering, okay, will it translate? Well, dude, it translated magnificently this week against a very difficult opponent. In fact, Kendall Lamb faced Boza a couple times that they actually switched them up. Not a lot. They didn't do a lot of switching, but there were a couple times that even Boza was on his side, and he handled it also, not just Mac. So, it translated. Everything that Kendall had worked for and all the confidence we heard from him and the eagerness to play and display and all that, dude, it paid off. So it could go either way. You could be getting him in shape for the next week or two to play, or you could be bringing him back. And, the good thing is that if now Taron has a setback, the Dolphin Nation goes, hey, man, they got a backup now. You know what I mean? So, there's at least if he does.
What did Chris Greer say the last time we spoke to him?
Oh,
I think you guys are all more concerned about this than we are.
The running game and the offensive line were the two panic positions for media members, some, and fans. And they were never worried about running backs or offensive linemen at the moment. If something would become available that they could get low-hanging fruit for either one of them, although, no, I think on the line part they would pay. The running back, they'll look for low-hanging fruit. I think on the offensive line, if somebody was crazy enough, if somebody had an extra lineman, which that doesn't really happen anymore in the league, but if somebody had an extra lineman, these guys would trade for him. Yeah, they would do that. But
I feel like you remember last year when I said that, they didn't see offensive line as big of a need as they did skill players. It was a need, but it wasn't going to be a total overhaul. It was even less of a priority this time around. The guys that they signed, it was depth. They needed depth. They didn't necessarily need starting quality linemen, or so they thought, because they expected a jump from Liam Eichenberg. We didn't see that jump. It just so happened that one of the depth players they signed, Isaiah Wynn, is a starting caliber left guard after all. So it worked out in that regard. I don't know if they're in the market to try to trade or pay big bucks for an offensive lineman now. I would kind of expect that
would become available. I think that they would make that move. You know what I mean? It's not going to happen, Marcel. You and I know. It's just unless there's a team that's going to start to rebuild all of a sudden in the middle of the season and the trading deadline's coming up and they're like, all right, we got to tear all this down. And then they got a lineman that, hey, we're not going to build with this guy. Let's let him move on. Let's get something for him. But that's not going to happen, dude.
Yeah, I mean, if the Colts decide to trade Quentin Nelson, then
something stupid
call.
Like that. But you just got the quarterback, so there's no way you do that right now. I mean,
I would expect, I wouldn't be shocked to see a interior lineman drafted next year. They finally have a first-round pick. For now, they have a first-round pick. I still have not covered a Dolphins first-round draft selection, so we'll see if it actually happens in 2024. But I wouldn't be shocked to see a lineman go. They go lineman in that regard. But no, I think they're doing okay. I think though that he needs at least a game. Taron, going back to the main topic here, Taron needs at least a game under his belt before they go up to Buffalo. They need that. I think he needs that.
And to back up your point and what we've talked about on the show, okay? People complained about Austin Jackson. Many of us, including myself, worried about Austin Jackson. Well, he's after some, ups and downs in training camp, he kind of strained everything out, and then he had a magnificent performance here in week 1. They've always believed in him, and it's paying off for them. They believed in Isaiah Wynn. Paid off for them right now. You know what I mean? They believed in Robert Jones. It paid off for them last year. They went and found Brandon Shell, and he filled in and all of that. And so La'el Collins was released, right? And so the silliness goes out there because always Dolphin Nation, they want to pick up everybody, right? And then somebody asked me about La'el Collins, and I said, what you guys don't realize is they actually have people on the roster they like. Nobody talks about Keon Smith. I have on the show that Keon has actually had his moments in training camp. If you watch, there are moments where you go, hey, this Keon Smith kid has got something here, because every once in a while he'll do something. So they've kept him like a project, like Lamb, like some of these other guys. And so we now have to kind of take a step back and give them now the benefit of the doubt, because I think you now have real offensive line people in the building. I don't think you had that prior. So it was going to be hard for the offensive linemen to thrive and succeed, because you didn't have the proper coaching, you didn't have the proper scheme, the proper play design. All of those things are now in place. So I think the assessment of an offensive lineman and what they can and cannot do is better now, because the people that are assessing it have all the things in place for them to succeed, whether it's the quarterback, the running game, the scheme, the play design, all of that stuff players desperately need. And so I think we have to kind of take a step back, because we've been in panic mode for 20 years about the offensive line. And I get it. We're all shell-shocked. But if you really start to look at it, these guys know what the hell they're doing, actually, dude.
Yeah, I think there's more of a plan. There's more of a plan now. They're better suited now. Keon Smith, I think probably safe to say now, like Keon Smith was taking the left tackle snaps when Taron was out in training camp. Like they trust him. They trust him. He's close-ish to playing, but I think Kendall Lamb is clearly, class.
He's a veteran. He's a veteran. Where Keon is still young. Let me look up Keon's age. I want to say Keon is like 23 or something, 24, right? I want to say. I don't think he's an older player. Like, the beautiful story about Lamb is that he's bounced around the league for a while. And sometimes the light doesn't go on, or you're not in the right scheme, or you don't run right into the right coaches, and your career goes around. But this kid is 24 years old, bro. He's a baby. So that's the difference.
At this point, I just kind of assume that everybody on that team is younger than me. I think I'm older than all but like 5 guys on that team right now. It's kind of insane. To me, it's humbling.
I'm twice the age of everybody on that team, practically.
Well, I'm still getting used to this. I'm still getting used to it.
I've been in the business longer than you've been alive.
Probably.
Oh, yeah. So. Are you 33? No, right?
Oh, yeah. So 31.
Okay. This is my 30th year, bro. It's crazy. It really is. It's absolutely nuts. All right. So Tua gets player of the week, offensive player of the week. Not that we're shocked with the performance that he had. My question is this his best performance as a Miami Dolphin?
It is. I'm really happy that you brought this up, because I have something I need to get off my chest a bit here. One, yes, it was his best performance, context included, situational context included in accounting for, just because there was no run game to support him. It was a shootout the entire way. It was his first game since December, and he threw for 460 yards. Man, the guy lit it up the entire game. Some of the throws, like, don't get me wrong, the Baltimore game was awesome to watch. Like, just objectively speaking, it was awesome to watch. That was a explosion.
Comeback.
6 touchdowns, 21-point comeback. It was awesome.
It's his greatest. This is
the throws that he made in that game were not necessarily special. If you get my drift here, Tyreek's was the first long one to Tyreek. Tyreek had a few steps on him. It was easy enough. It's an easy ball. You should be able to complete that as an NFL quarterback. The second one to Tyreek, there was nobody within 20 yards of him. You have to be able to. I could probably have hit him on that. The two, the touchdown to Craycraft and then the gamer to Waddle, I thought were special. Like the Gesicki touchdown. Actually, now there were a few that were like, wow, like that's a good throw. I don't think any of them were as good as the 3rd and 10 throw to Tyreek. I don't think any of them were as good as the rollout, the duck away and roll out to Barrios on the run. Though I don't think any of them were as good as the goal line fade to Tyreek to win the game. Like the things that he was doing and the way that he was able to navigate in and out of the pocket and escape pressure, no sacks. And that wasn't just because these guys were getting stonewalled at the line of scrimmage. Joey Bosa still had 6 pressures. Like, that's still a good game. It's still a good game. Tua was able to navigate the pocket. These are the things that I was begging for him to do last year. We saw it this year. We saw it all come together.
Great point.
Well-deserved. Best game of his career, absolutely. The bone I have to pick here is with y'all's favorite fan base. I said after that game, who wins Offensive Player of the Week? Tyreek, Tua, or other? I got so many replies, man, with, have all the games been played yet? Wow, you are unreal. I can't believe you just wouldn't count Bills Jets.
Yeah.
If Stephon Diggs went for 11, 215, and 2, it would be the game of his career. As it would for most NFL receivers. That's an unreal. You don't just get 200 yards.
That's not going to happen against that Jets defense anyways.
Like all 3 of those stat lines, the catches, the yards, and the touchdowns, all 3 of those are elite caliber performances.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it would normally, that would get you player of the week unless your quarterback throws for 460 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like the replies were like, I was saying this after 2-0 threw for like 290 and 2 touchdowns. Like there's some stat line that you could see any top end, high end quarterback eclipsing. You know what I mean? Like it was just, it made me upset to the point where like, I don't want to say I wasn't rooting for anybody to win or lose in that game, but it was like, oh wow, that's really ironic, guys. Like you were all on my butt about this player of the week thing. How did that turn out? How did that turn out for you? It got on my nerves so much that today on Thursday, it's still kind of annoying. I still have to talk to you about it. Like it was like, it's not rooted necessarily in opinion. That was rooted in, it was a hypothesis, not an assumption. Right, a hypothesis is an educated guess. Right. Josh Allen, I have been in the NFC East for 5 seasons. In 5 games at MetLife, he has played well in 1 of them.
No, that's a hell of a defense, dude. You're not really going to have a ton of success.
It's a hard defense. It's a division game. It is and then right now, it's a stadium that he does not play well in. Matter of fact, in that game, this game, and then the one in 2019 to start the season, that was my first game covering Buffalo. He had 8 combined turnovers in those games, though. 8. Like, so yeah, like I'm sorry that I didn't assume that your quarterback would throw for 470 yards, which would be his career high, by the way.
Yeah.
He does not have a 450-yard or 460-yard game. So I'm sorry that I didn't assume a career best game against a team that gives him hell every time they play at a stadium. It was unbelievable, man. It was God bless the Bills fans that are like reasonable and rational and like can like, provide a crumb of critical thought. But like, man, I know every fan base has them, but like drove me nuts, dude. But all right, we're back to earth now. We're back to earth. Tua, that was the best game of his career, hands down. Right. Got an opportunity to do it again or to, build on that against a defense a team that he's had success against. But I would argue that the success has been as a team, not necessarily individual.
Again, you're facing a really good defense, so you're not going to necessarily light them up. You just got to find a way to win the game, and that's what he's done 4 straight times, being undefeated. And leads me to that question that, the line opened up at Dolphins favored in New England by 2.5. That's another thing that Tua has changed because they're never favored in New England. Now it's up to 3. So the money is coming in on the Miami Dolphins. The money line has grown, all of that. I'm glad I took it, by the way, the other day at 2.5. But anyway, so what do you think about this game? How are you liking the Dolphins in this game?
I mean, I'm intrigued. I am, after what I just saw, I am inclined to say I think the Dolphins will win. It's a game that they can win. It's a game that they should win. I don't think New England is a particularly good offensive team. But I will say that they had, I think it was 204 receiving yards after the catch against Philly. That is a good defense. Mac Jones just threw for 300 yards against a good defense. It's not something he's necessarily known to do. I spoke with an agent the other day who told me, I think you and a lot of people are undervaluing New England's offense. I think those guys can play. So I am this guy, that agent is yet to lie to me, has yet to lie to me. This man told me 8 months in advance, maybe more, that the Texans were going to trade DeAndre Hopkins a few years back. I thought he was crazy. I was like, you nuts? Absolutely not. Offseason came, and sure as hell they did. So this is a guy I trust. He said we're undervaluing the Patriots offense. So I'm going to go in there with an open mind. I'm going to throw away my previous conceptions, my previous beliefs and opinions. They do have a real offensive coordinator there. I still don't really think they have weapons at receiver, but Kendrick Bourne had 2 touchdowns against a good cornerback, a good secondary. So like I'm intrigued. I am intrigued by this. And again, Tua has not had these blow-up games against New England. When they play, it's generally don't mess up. Like, it's generally like, all right, trust your defense to keep you in the game. Go get us some points. It's going to be low scoring. Besides I think his big touchdown last year, it was that like 4th down to Waddle over the middle, and Waddle did a lot of that work. So, looking forward to it. They've taken away Tyreek Hill. I believe the 3 games or 2 games that we saw them last year, this is an opportunity for him to break free as well. They've got decent corners over there in Jones and Gonzalez. So it's going to be an interesting matchup, not to mention tonight game at Foxborough. They're going to be fired up.
Yeah, no, I expect that. Now, I'm dead set that last week was a message game by Mike McDaniel. Like, nobody's going to take any part of the field away from me. So he just put an exclamation point on the middle of the field. So I think they'll get back to what we thought they were going to do this year, is run the ball more than they did last year. And this is the kind of game that I think, in order to soften up that defense, you're going to have to run the ball. And so are you expecting a much heavier approach to the running game against the Patriots this week?
Yeah, I think it's fair to assume that they're going to want to run the ball more. Again, these are typically low-scoring, control the ball, control the clock contests between these two teams. Mostert started off the game highly efficient against the Chargers before they basically got away from the run. Once again, the only difference between their dedication to the run game between last week's game against the Chargers and last year's game against the Chargers, the passing game couldn't be stopped. There was no reason to go away from it. But either way, like, they have shown they can be efficient on the ground. Very interested to see if Devon Achane gets any run. Again, I think he just provides a little extra element for them. Clearly, these backs, between Mostert and Ahmed, like, they were involved out of the backfield, even in the passing game. So we haven't seen, I don't think, the full Dolphins offense yet. We saw them say, okay, Tua throwing the ball is working, so let's keep doing that. But we haven't seen, I don't think he's really opened the bag of tricks as wide as it possibly can go yet.
Well, let's hope so, because they definitely need to run this week, I think, in order to soften up that defense, because they're going to come after you. And I think you want to make Tua's life a little easier back there, even though it was pretty clean. That was very smart. They had a game plan of getting rid of that football quickly. That was the other thing I liked about Tua. He had the slide. He threw the ball away when he scrambled to the left, and there was nothing. He just threw it on the floor, and he got rid of it quickly. So he did. And let me tell you something. The bulking up, they landed all over his ass. Old Tua might have gotten injured a couple of weeks ago on the bad snap that the linebacker landed on his back, neck, and head. And in that game, the 2 snaps where people fell all over him, including the one where he was sideways, The bulking up, I think, already paid off. Dude. Already paid off.
It is. I'm excited. I'm supposed to be on Around the Horn tomorrow. I'm excited to talk to Tony Reale about it because I got I don't know if anybody caught. So last week, I lost a lot of points saying that I believed in Tua's offseason training. And so I am looking forward to the updated perspectives from my fellow panelists. We'll say that.
Yeah. There's a lot of people eating crow, but then there's a lot of people that just kind of refuse to eat the crow. So they'll continue to make all kinds of excuses against him because they just don't want to admit that they were wrong. You know what I mean? But that's kind of the way the world goes. What are you going to do? All right. What do you got going on ESPN so folks can check you out, my friend?
Got a story coming out later this week about the impact of Jalen Waddle. When you see the stat line, it is not, it doesn't jump off the page to you per se. He still had, 78 yards on 4 catches. Like, I'd say that's still a good line. Actually, it's 16th most in the NFL. So it puts him in the top half of the league. But the plays that he made that indirectly influenced the Dolphins win, that's what I want this fan base, these readers to focus on. And that is what I'm writing about here.
All right. Awesome. Sounds good. Was that Haley?
That was not.
No? Okay. All right. We shall see you. Enjoy the game, my brother. Enjoy your trip. We will talk.
I appreciate it. I told you we just moved up, so I'm up here in the our building's got this lounge on the top floor, and it's the only place I could get a little peace and quiet to write and not be surrounded by boxes and dogs. So that was a fellow resident. I don't know who that was.
Okay. All right. No, that's fine. It's a different spot.
I'd say y'all don't get no ideas here. But
no. I wasn't thinking about that. Essential Moving Experts, by the way, did a good job for you, huh?
Crushed it, man.
Yeah. Sean is good people. And don't forget, of course, Welt Rheaume, the law firm here in South Florida you need to call when you need them. Storm damage, bankruptcy, you name it, criminal defense. Hopefully you don't need that. But they are there for you, Welt Rheaume. So make sure you call them 954-966-4646. Marcel, have a safe trip, my friend. We'll catch up on Monday.
Appreciate it. Peace.
Thank you, sir.
This has been another session of the Welt Rheaume Miami Dolphins Report with Marcel Louis-Jacques. At Welt Rheaume, they don't get paid unless you win. They handle complex personal injury claims caused by the fault of another in both state and federal courts. They handle auto, trucking, motorcycle slip and fall, and bicycle accidents. Call 954-966-4646. Welt Rheaume can help.